our ancestral presence. Thanking God for the moment that we are all represented here right now. Thank you all for joining me on this fantastic voyage, this journey back in time. My oldest friend, the old friend,
Sorry about that.
Errol Meeks, and his beautiful wife. I've had more friends and family that have been on the tour over the last day and a half. People I've known for 35, 40. Whew. It's been surreal. And this is the last tour of all the Dave Cos cruises. So we're going to really turn it up today. Whatever I got left, I've been saving it for y'all. You see all the refreshments on the table?
Yes.
The more you drink, the better the tour gets.
Oh, yeah.
That's the truth. I'm just telling you like it is. I'm going to start with my story. I came to this beautiful city 10 years ago. I can't believe it's been 10 years. I came as a student. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. Any New Yorkers in the house?
Brooklyn in the house.
I told you we're going to turn up tonight. My parents, all of my ancestors, come from the country called Suriname. You all know where Suriname is. You know where Brazil is. Above Brazil, there are 3 Guyanas. The smallest country in South America is Suriname. On that, most of us are old enough to remember Jim Jones and Guyana. That was British Guyana. In the central country is Suriname, and on the east coast is French Guiana. And in the 17th century, that whole region was known as the Dutch Guyanas. My family's been in this country since 1949. My mother grew up here in Amsterdam after World War II. My family's been in the Netherlands for 4 generations. I trace my family heritage in Suriname 6 generations to the first Tosch and the plantations where my family were born, enslaved, free, and then went on to buy their own land. So I have a lot of history to share with you because all of this is about my story, your story, our story. And you might be surprised to learn that there's a Black history even in Amsterdam. How many are like, Black history, what?
Yes.
Well, when I first came here as a student 10 years ago, I was told there was no Black history. I was told, oh no, there was no slavery of Dutch soil. No, that was only in the colonies. And I was told, oh no, there was definitely no racism here. That's an American, y'all Americans. But the first sight we're going to see on my left, you see that castle as soon as we get past this bridge. That castle is called the Waag. You'll see it in just a moment. And it's a place where they brought the goods off the ships to weigh them and to study them. And it was also a site of the scientific racism that developed in the 18th century. And what my team and I'm part of a network called Mapping Slavery Nederland, what we were setting out to do was to try to unpack the history that it either forgot, erased, or ignored, the heritage of our people. And now over years of research and recovery and retrieval and excavation of the past, I now have a Black Heritage Tour to share with you. That's a great thing. Thank you. And next year, I want you all to come back because we're going to commemorate the 10 years when I started this tour on my daughter's birthday, January 12th. He knows it because he leaves school when she was knee-high to a tadpole. She's named Noel because he named his daughter Errol and they switched names. We can do that too. Okay, I digress. Let me stay focused. So what we tried to do was to tell the other side of the story. Because the Dutch are very proud of the golden age. Have anyone heard of that term, the golden age? Every nation state has a golden age story, right? The glory. And as a student, I kept asking, well, how is it we're talking about the Dutch became one of the 10 richest countries in the world? during the 17th century, which is the rise of the Dutch Empire, when it became independent from Spain, and it was celebrating its sovereignty. And you talk about that, but how can you talk about it without also talking about how you became? It wasn't just you were great entrepreneurs. I mean, come on now. We also have to talk about war that was invading of lands of indigenous people, their resources, enslaving and colonizing their people. That's how. It's a two-sided story. So it's not that I'm here to demonize Dutch history, because there are some glory moments that we should definitely celebrate, but without telling the other side of the story, it's just a little bit incomplete. So my research focuses on what is the future for the past. So I've become a cultural historian, and I'm more proud of being a time traveler. I travel back in time every day for my work. And together, we're going to go back 500 years. Wow. And we're going to try to unpack what was it like for this black communities of people to live in a land that said you don't exist. That your heritage and memory was only somewhere else. Here was just us. So we're going to look at how the built environment, what I love about Amsterdam and this country is it's so well preserved, this colonial memory. My focus is on heritage and memory. And Gloria Becker, one of my scholars and friends, she writes a book called White Innocence, where she talks about the cultural archive. We all have an archive of culture and heritage. And after 400 years of colonialism, it has left its traces on the culture, on memory, on the built environment, in language, in knowledge production. That's what we're going to explore, the traces of this colonial heritage. Starting with the oldest part of the city, 500 years, older than that even, because the oldest building is a church. And this is also now today known as the red light district. Okay, how many of y'all have traveled through the red light, went asking for a coffee shop and got something else? Okay. But this is actually known as the Valla, which is where the sailors, the merchants, the administrators of the Dutch East India Company, West India Company, the warehouses where they kept the goods, the offices, the working class community. And you're going to tell the difference when we get to the richest part of the city, known as the Golden Belt. Here on my left, this is the University of Amsterdam, where I'm working on a double master's. Not doing too fast on it because I don't have time to finish, but sometimes you see my classmates. I have created a history of knowledge production that's part of now changing the way the discourse, let's say it like that. And when I started, they told me, well, we don't really have a curriculum for you. I mean, you want to study, heritage and memory of colonialism and black history. We focus more on the World War II memory. That's for the Dutch very prominent. Like, we have 100 monuments to that. We don't really focus so much. I said, that's all right, because we're going to co-create the memory together. So part of what we have to do as Americans traveling through time in the Dutch context is reframe how that history operates here. Because the Dutch were not, this country is not a settler society. So when we talk about settlers, and you hear that terminology used, it meant that the Europeans went somewhere else, invaded that land, colonized those people, exploited those resources, and then settled there and said, this is home.
My land.
All right, but here, this was the financial center, the economic center of the world at one point. And so when we talk about the administration of that, this building on the corner, as we're turning this canal, you see there the corner building, that was known as the filing house, the auction house. So the auctions that we know, for example, in the Caribbean, the auction blocks where enslaved people were forced to stand naked to be bought and sold. Their bodies not there, but on paper, that's where they were transacted. So we researched, my team of Mapping Slavery Project, to look for the records of when they were auctioned. And we found hundreds of different plantations, like those kinds of auctions that we know today, that was happening here. And we found the records of, for example, one plantation, the Vrede plantation. Over 1,000 items were auctioned in the auction house, including Negro homes, sugar mills, all the apparatus of producing coffee, cocoa, tobacco, including the enslaved men, women, and children.